Pan Przewodniczący.
Well, very good. Yes, fantastic. Wznawiam posiedzenie. Protokół z wczorajszego posiedzenia jest dostępny. Czy są jakieś uwagi? Nie ma uwag. Protokół został zatwierdzony. Pierwszym punktem porządku dziennego jest tura pytań z udziałem przewodniczącego Komisji. Chciałem powitać wśród nas pana przewodniczącego José Manuel Barroso na comiesięcznym spotkaniu związanym z turą pytań. Bardzo proszę, reguły są takie same jak zawsze. Minuta pytanie, minuta odpowiedź, ewentualnie jeszcze dodatkowe pół minuty na pytanie i odpowiedź, gdyby któryś z panów przewodniczących się na to zdecydował. Bardzo proszę. Grupa Europejskiej Partii Ludowej, pan Ioannis Kasoulides w imieniu przewodniczącego.
Thank you, Chairman. President Barroso, on behalf of President Daul, I want to ask the following question. The EPP Group would like to know your views pertaining to the current efforts to resume direct negotiations for the settlement of the Palestinian question. The United States have abandoned efforts to convince Israel to extend a moratorium on settlements in East Jerusalem and the West Bank, probably because they are leading to nowhere. What are the efforts to be undertaken by the EU separately or in conjunction within the Quartet to get the negotiations underway? In view of the present developments, how should one read the reiteration of the readiness of the EU to recognise an independent Palestinian state when appropriate? What is the assessment on the humanitarian situation in the Gaza Strip after the decision taken by Israel in June 2010 to ease the closure of the crossings and the efforts for the liberation of Gilad Shalit?
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Kasoulides. As you know, the European Union strongly supports the resumption of direct talks. Foreign Affairs Minister Council expressed yesterday the European position, regretting that Israel was not able to accept a new settlement freeze as requested by the European Union, the United States and the Quartet. I would add that this situation was disappointing, particularly because creating necessary conditions for a two-state solution is not only in the interest of Palestine, the region or the international community at large, but indeed, I believe, in the very interest of Israel. On negotiations, the Foreign Affairs Council also agreed yesterday on intensifying coordination with the Quartet and the United States. Special Envoy Senator Mitchell will shortly meet Catherine Ashton to debrief her on the current state of affairs. The European Union will convey its full support to the peace process and full engagement in the region. I believe the Quartet could be revitalised with the European Union working very closely with the US. Our representative Ashton has been in touch with key players in the region, and we are also looking forward to the Arab League meeting this week. We need to give negotiations a new chance, a new impetus, because stalemate should not be an option. I am convinced that a way forward will be found alongside with the United States.
Thank you. What additional question? Yes, please.
I would like to ask again regarding the humanitarian situation in the Gaza Strip following the opening of the closures and probably what is happening with Corporal Gilad Shalit. Thank you.
I think the situation in Gaza is not tenable. Economic recovery is crucially needed, but unfortunately we do not see the fundamental change of policy in Gaza that the European Union has asked for over the last months. That is why the European Union agreed last Monday on a three-pronged approach to support exports from Gaza, following a request from Prime Minister Fayyad. I recently received Prime Minister Fayyad and we spoke also about this. Gaza should be viewed as a very important component of Palestinian state building.
Thank you very much. Mr. President Schulz.
Vielen Dank, Präsident, Herr Barroso. Am Donnerstag und Freitag tagt der Europäische Rat. Ich möchte Sie fragen, erstens, sind Sie der Auffassung, dass die Einführung von Euro-Anleihen, sogenannten Euro-Bonds, zur Stabilisierung des Euro beitragen kann? Zweitens, Teilen Sie die Auffassung von Frau Bundeskanzlerin Angela Merkel, dass Eurobonds nicht nötig sind? Drittens, was gedenken Sie für den Fall, dass Sie anderer Meinung sind als Frau Merkel, also für Eurobonds sind, am kommenden Donnerstag im Rat zu tun? Viertens, sind Sie mit dem Vorsitzenden der Eurogruppe, Herrn Premierminister und Finanzminister Juncker, in Kontakt und werden Sie ihn als Kommissionspräsident unterstützen? Und fünftens, werden Sie dem Parlament unmittelbar danach für den Fall, dass es nicht zu Eurobonds kommt, vortragen, in welcher Form Sie als Kommission auf einen eventuellen Nichtbeschluss reagieren wollen?
Thank you.
Bonds is an interesting idea. In fact, the Commission has considered it already in 2008 in our document in the EMU at 12, the 10th anniversary. However, in the meantime, with a view to address this crisis, we have created the EMSF and the ESFS, and these instruments are far from exhausted. If need be, they can be improved and adapted much more quickly than any alternative, interesting as it may be. So at this very moment, I think we must ask ourselves a simple question: is the crisis best addressed through instruments that are consensual, or through opening yet another discussion on which there is no consensus? And as your question suggests, indeed there is no consensus on the proposals made recently by Prime Minister Juncker. So I think the answer today is obvious. We should concentrate on what can build consensus in the euro area, because not having this consensus will be detrimental for the perceptions of the markets regarding the euro area. So let us not kill the very interesting idea of eurobonds for the future, but let us concentrate at this stage on what we can do quickly and decisively.
Question, yes?
Sie haben in der Ihnen eigenen Diplomatie geantwortet, Herr Barroso. Das will ich Ihnen aber nicht durchgehen lassen. Ich frage Sie deshalb sehr präzise. Herr Premierminister Juncker hat in seiner Funktion als Vorsitzender der Eurogruppe angekündigt, dass er eine Initiative im Europäischen Rat für die Einführung von Eurobonds ergreifen will. Werden Sie ihn dabei unterstützen? Und könnte es sein, dass Sie den Versuch unternehmen, Frau Merkel und Herrn Sarkozy zu überzeugen, dass sie sich der Mehrheit der Eurostaaten anschließen? Oder werden Sie, wenn Frau Merkel und Herr Sarkozy sagen, wir wollen das nicht, sagen, okay, weil zwei Nein sagen, geben wir den Gedanken auf?
Thank you.
I am going to give a very candid answer. I do not believe at this stage there is the minimum possibility of getting an agreement on eurobonds. There is reluctance on several member states regarding that proposal. That is why I think we should work to reach the largest possible consensus with the current instruments. I have said to you very frankly, Martin Schulz, really very frankly, that I found the idea interesting, attractive. In fact, the Commission has made several proposals before even one of my illustrious predecessors. But at this stage, there are no conditions to get that agreement.
Thank you. Mr. President Verhofstadt.
I have a specific question, but I want to say, Mr. Barroso, you have the right of initiative with the Commission. You can come forward with a proposal on the Eurobonds. And that was the question of Mr. Schulz. But okay, you don't use it. And that's a problem for the moment, I think, on this issue. So I have a concrete question on the discharge 2009. There is a declaration of assurance of a Director General of Regional Policy, and he is saying, and I am quoting him, that for 38 out of 79 programmes, the Directorate General does not have reasonable assurance on the legality and regularity of the underlying transactions in relation to reimbursements in 2009 of expenditures declared. This prompts the question, who is in a position to provide this reasonable assurance? And the declaration continues that for the 41 remaining programmes, significant deficiencies have been identified at an early stage, before any reimbursement in 2009. So my question to you is, assuming you take political responsibility for this declaration, with all its ramifications, what will be your line of action towards the Member States?
Thank you.
First of all, because you also made a comment, Mr. Verhofstadt, let me tell you, the Commission has already used its right of initiative. And you remember when we launched this mechanism Myself and Olli Rehn, we have presented the possibility of a collective guarantees that was more or less going in the direction of the Eurobonds. It was rejected flatly by the Member States. So we could now come with new divisive proposals, but I do not think it is responsible at this moment to come again with proposals formally when we are in such a sensitive situation that will only divide the euro area and the European Union. But the Commission has made proposals already. They were on the table and they were rejected. This is the reality. And by the way, for the financial perspectives, I already committed to put a proposal for a specific kind of Eurobonds, euro project Eurobonds, and even if I heard already some negative comments coming from some capitals, I still keep hope that we will have it. Regarding your question, I am sorry because you made another comment I had to respond. I think we have to ask more from the Member States because, as you know, with some exceptions, 4 or 5 Member States, they are not ready to give their declaration of assurance. And so it is true what our Director General said and that you have mentioned, that sometimes the Commission has not all the instruments to engage as early as possible the Member States in the way the European Union funding is spent at national level.
Thank you very much. The next, Mr. President. Oh, yes, okay. Is colleague José Bove.
Monsieur Barroso, vous m'aviez dit il y a un an qu'au cours de votre premier mandat, les OGM avaient pollué votre mandat. Or, et que vous vouliez renvoyer ce dossier vers les États. Il y a quelques jours, 1 200 000 signatures ont été réunies par les citoyens européens pour demander une expertise indépendante sur les OGM. Il y a quelques jours, le Conseil de l'environnement et de l'agriculture a rejeté la proposition du commissaire Dalli avec une très grande majorité et les conseils juridiques du Conseil et du Parlement ont donné aussi des avis négatifs. Enfin, vous avez vu le scandale à l'intérieur de l'EFSA avec l'affaire Banati et les problèmes posés par le panel. L'EFSA elle-même a décidé d'ailleurs de nouvelles lignes directrices d'évaluation. Donc ce que je vous demande, est-ce que vous êtes prêt à surseoir à toute nouvelle autorisation ou à tout renouvellement comme pour le Mont 810 tant que les nouvelles règles mises en place par l'EFSA n'ont pas été faites? Il faut que les nouvelles évaluations, la réautorisation se fasse selon les nouvelles règles. Dernière question, est-ce que vous êtes prêt à lancer une nouvelle discussion pour faire en sorte qu'on ait une évaluation indépendante et indépendante?
Écoutez, concernant l'initiative, vous savez que nous n'avons pas encore en vigueur ce nouveau régime. Mais bien sûr, nous suivons avec un grand intérêt toutes les initiatives des citoyens concernant cette question. Et en fait, le commissaire responsable a reçu les promoteurs de cette initiative, même si on ne l'a pas encore formellement approuvé, ce genre d'initiative. En ce qui concerne la question actuelle, on va continuer à appliquer la législation telle qu'elle existe maintenant. Nous n'avons pas d'alternative meilleure à la EFSA. C'est l'agence qui a été créée, indépendante, pour donner des avis. Et bien sûr, nous devons respecter les avis de cette agence, qui est une agence indépendante et qui recueille l'expertise dans ce domaine. Donc nous allons continuer à respecter le droit communautaire dans ce domaine. La Commission ne peut pas dire qu'elle suspend l'application du droit communautaire. Je vous ai déjà dit très franchement que je ne suis pas content avec le régime des OGM en Europe. Je ne suis pas content, je crois qu'il n'est pas suffisamment clair, mais c'est le régime que je suis tenu de respecter.
Once again, Mr. Bové.
Votre réponse, néanmoins, il y a des nouvelles lignes directrices qui ont été mises en place par l'EFSA, beaucoup plus strictes déjà. Est-ce que vous êtes prêt à dire que toutes les nouvelles autorisations qui ont été faites ces derniers temps et la question du Mont 810 doivent être refaites en fonction de ces nouvelles lignes directrices? On ne peut pas accepter aujourd'hui des évaluations avec des règles anciennes. Et c'est pour cela que je vous demande très clairement cette question, comme je vous demande la remise à plat de l'ensemble de ce débat, qui normalement doit intervenir en 2012. La réactualisation de la directive 2001-18 doit intervenir en 2012. Il faut avancer ce processus. Merci.
Comme d'habitude, nous prenons toujours en considération les propositions et les suggestions de l'agence indépendante de la Food Security Agency à Parme. Et donc, s'il nous propose de nouvelles lignes directrices, nous les regarderons avec la plus grande attention. C'est ce que je peux vous dire à ce stade. Mais on n'a pas encore changé le régime légal d'approbation des OGM, donc je dois maintenir ce régime jusqu'au moment où il sera changé. Mais nous serons prêts à considérer toute nouvelle ligne directrice et les analyser avec le plus grand soin.
Dziękuję. Pan Michał Kamiński, przewodniczący Europejskiej Konserwatyści Reformatorzy.
Dziękuję, panie przewodniczący. Panie przewodniczący, od 9 kwietnia Gazprom i konsorcjum Nord Stream układa gazociąg, tak zwany gazociąg północny. Nie chcę się koncentrować na aspekcie ekologicznym tego wydarzenia, o nim także ta Izba debatowała. Chcę tylko zwrócić uwagę na jeden fakt. Otóż rura, która jest układana, w sposób znaczący utrudnia dostęp większych statków do polskiego portu w Świnoujściu. Ten port jest znaczącym pracodawcą dla wielu Polaków w zachodniej Polsce, dotkniętej często dość dużym bezrobociem. W tej sprawie Polska poruszała tę kwestię w stosunkach bilateralnych, ale wydaje mi się, że mamy tutaj do czynienia także z problematyką konkurencyjności. Otóż tuż obok, po niemieckiej stronie granicy, jest port w Rostocku. Życzę mu jak największego rozwoju, ale chciałbym, aby porty w Europie były na równych zasadach, by mogły rzeczywiście konkurować i aby techniczne rozwiązania jednego z państw nie blokowały rozwoju portu drugiego państwa.
Dziękuję panu.
I am aware that there have been concerns at some point that access to the concerned Polish ports will be restricted. According to the information available to the Commission, however, the German Stralsund mining authority included a requirement for the Nord Stream company in its permit to prepare a revised risk analysis for a section of the pipeline in a German territory, as plans were presented at that stage by the Polish side to adapt both ports for ships that would need a deeper water depth to float. As a result of this analysis, the pipeline will be laid in the seabed with a covering of half a metre for about 20 kilometres. In addition, the analysis of the planned route of the German EEZ led to the decision to opt for an alternative track on a length of 12 kilometres. The final permission was granted by the Federal Office for Shipping and Hydrography in February this year. According to the information available from the German authorities and the developer, both measures above were taken in order to ensure the unrestricted access to the Polish ports after the construction of the pipeline. I am sorry it is very technical, but this is the best of the information we have.
Thank you. Well, please, additional question.
Dziękuję bardzo, panie przewodniczący. Pan wielokrotnie dawał dowód na to, że pan sprawiedliwie traktuje państwa członkowskie. Mam nadzieję, że w tej sprawie Komisja Europejska będzie podobnie sprawiedliwie traktować mój kraj. Chcę tylko zwrócić pana uwagę, że nawet sam przyznał pan, że opiera się pan w przeważającym stopniu o dane przedstawiane przez stronę niemiecką, a ja apelowałbym do Komisji Europejskiej, by w tej sprawie również odwoływała się do niezależnych ekspertów, chociaż cały czas podkreślam, mam wielką wiarę w pana sprawiedliwe podejście do wszystkich państw Unii Europejskiej.
Dziękuję.
Thank you for your comments, Mr. Kaminski. Indeed, the Commission is following very closely the issue of Nord Stream. We are aware of the sensitivity of the issue, both from an ecological and from other points of view, so we will follow that with great care.
Thank you, colleague Lothar Bisky, President.
Vielen Dank, Herr Präsident. Herr Barroso, Sie haben auf die Fragen von Herrn Scholz geantwortet, dass das mit den Euro-Anleihen wohl doch nicht funktionieren wird. Zuvor wurde uns mitgeteilt, dass die Finanztransaktionssteuer nichts wird. Andere Dinge sind nichts geworden. Wir sind im 3. Jahr nach der Finanzkrise und jetzt frage ich, ob Sie der Aufstockung des Euro-Rettungsschirms zustimmen könnten. Das wäre ja eine weitere Maßnahme. Oder ob wir damit zu rechnen haben, dass zum Wochenende wieder eine Menge Vorschläge von Ihnen und von anderen abgelehnt werden. Und die Frage, die ich habe, wie teuer ist dieses Zögern, zumal das ja viel Geld kostet?
Thank you.
One thing I think we have to tell the European heads of state and government is the following. When they meet, and when we meet, because the Commission President is also a member of the European Council, when we meet this week, we are not just speaking to one another or to the politics or to the economy, we are speaking to the markets. So these are extremely sensitive issues where I believe we have to have some kind of restraint in the comments made. I've already, because I have a duty to be transparent to all of you, responded very honestly to a question put by Mr. Schulz. We see some interest in the Eurobond proposal. I think we should not kill the proposal, but it is obvious that there is no consensus at this stage. So I will not insist on what, for me, is obvious at this stage, a divisive issue. We have instruments now that were the object of a consensus that we can work on to try to find a coherent, robust action to protect the euro area, to protect the European Union.
Thank you. Additional question? Yes, please.
Herr Barroso, eine kurze Nachfrage nur. Gibt es weitere Instrumente, die noch in der Diskussion sind? Weil ich fühle mich da etwas schlecht informiert. Es muss etwas getan werden. Ich glaube, da sind wir einer Meinung, dass die Instrumente, die zur Verfügung stehen, auch eingesetzt werden.
We are discussing many issues and many possible alternative instruments. The last Eurogroup has considered different options and different ideas, and the Commission is in touch with all the parties involved. I personally have been consulting not only Member States, but the President of the European Central Bank, the Executive Director of the IMF, other very important players in this matter, myself and Olli Rehn. But I do not think it is wise, as happened sometimes in the past, to make very important announcements that are not followed by concrete consequences. I think next time we have to do exactly the opposite. Come with real conclusions when we are ready, and that is why the Commission is working very actively with all Member States and with other institutions to have, as soon as possible, a comprehensive response.
Thank you very much. Mr. President Nigel Farage.
Mr Barroso, the recent Wikileaks storm has led to mixed feelings, with some people saying, well, transparency is good, and others saying perhaps they will damage international diplomacy. But I was particularly amused by the references to you in Wikileaks, where it talked about your trip to Russia and the fact that you were ignored and excluded, and the Russian view from upon high that you were nothing more than a glorified international civil servant. Well, Mr Barroso, remember, we have discussed this before here, and I have pointed out to you again and again that you have not been directly elected by the people, and you therefore have no real legitimacy. Is it that the fact you are unelected is the reason why you do not command more respect on the global stage, and why increasingly the peoples of Europe are holding you and the entire Commission in contempt?
Thank you. Mr.
I would
President.
not expect you to find a common line with the Russians, because that is what you are suggesting, that you agree with them. Frankly, I was elected by this Parliament, by secret vote, so I think I deserve the respect of this Parliament from all members of the Parliament. And I think in the European Union of democracies, 27 democracies, it is a reasonable way to elect a President of the Commission, because we are not a state, precisely, and I am sure you will not be in favour of a European unified state. Since we are not a unified state, it is not a direct election of a President of the European Union. We do not have that. We have a President of the Commission. You may like it or not. I like him more than you, but okay. But in fact, I have been elected by this Parliament, and there is a President of the European Council that was designated by the heads of state and government. This is the way we are. I think it is a democratic way of handling the diversity of the European Union, and I think that if others do not respect our institutions, at least I hope the members of the European Parliament will respect the institutions we have in the European Union.
Additional question?
Well, Mr Barroso, I enjoyed that enormously. The fact that you can stand up and boast about the fact that you were elected in secret and that somehow this gives you democratic legitimacy is the most bizarre concept I have come across in my entire life. The fact is, it is the Commission that has the sole right to propose the kind of legislation that is damaging Europe's economies in the way that it is. Are there any circumstances, sir, in which you think the peoples of Europe should have a referendum so that they can decide these issues?
Thank you very much. Mr. President, well, colleagues, please, well, we would like to, I am sorry, Mr. President Schulz, I am very sorry, Mr. President Schulz, we would like to go ahead with our proceeding. Well, colleagues, Mr. President Schulz, well, please, it's a parliament. And Mr. President Barroso, now is
the election in the Parliament was an open election, but in fact, as you know, it is considered, at least by many, that the most free election is one when people can take decisions secretly, each member of the Parliament. By the way, in totalitarian systems, usually secret votes are not allowed, precisely because of the pressure on individual freedoms. This is the first point. Secondly, regarding referendum, constitutional and democratic theory admits referendum and also representative democracy. By the way, it was Britain, probably the country that has done most for representative democracy. It is a perfect legitimate way of deciding in a democracy is by representative democracy. The role of parliaments, be it national parliaments or European Parliament, is immensely important in democracy, and I personally believe that some comments against representative democracy do not reflect the real democratic mind when they are made sometimes so negatively about representative democracy.
Thank you very much. Mr. Andrew Brons, non-attached.
Thank you. China enjoys a large surplus on its balance of trade with the EU, and Europe's supply on services is too small to surplus on services is too small to compensate for this. It achieves its trade surplus by an artificially low value of its currencies, suppressed wage rates so that imports into China cannot be afforded and so that export prices are considerably lower than European prices, and thirdly, by ignoring international patent rights so that Chinese companies can benefit from research and development not carried out by themselves. China is rapidly accumulating foreign currency reserves and control over scarce global resources. European countries are becoming the willing victims of a relentless global competitor that will be the instrument of destruction of our livelihoods. European countries must individually, my preference, or collectively, protect our industries. Why does the Commission allow EU business and workers to suffer unfair competition from China? Thank you.
Well, let me tell you that we will be much more successful if we do it collectively than separately. Frankly, I do not see our individual member states with enough leverage to impose some kind of measures on China. I think the European Union collectively can engage with China, and that is what we have been doing. We are in favour of free trade, as you know, but we are also in favour of fair trade. That is when we believe there is evidence of dumping. For instance, we have launched some measures, anti-dumping, regarding China. It was not easy because some member states in fact opposed to those measures, but we have done it, and we are discussing, I will say every time we meet the Chinese leadership we are discussing intellectual property rights and the need for them to respect some basic principles so that we can keep an open trade with them. And that is exactly our agenda, to engage positively with the Chinese but being firm in terms also of our trade interests. And by the way, in this last summit this was quite clearly expressed.
Thank you. Well, additional question, please.
Yes. Mr Barroso, you said that you believed in fair trade, but of course fair trade isn't an offer. What we have is biased trade in favour of China. Will the Commission be successful in getting China to remove its subsidies, allowing its currency to appreciate, or for that matter respecting international property rights, which apparently amount to something like 5% of Chinese GDP? Will it not be necessary in the end to block imports of Chinese goods altogether? Thank you.
The answer is clear. The Commission will be successful if you have the full support of all Member States. We are doing that, and we are very committed to reciprocity overall, the concept of reciprocity. It means that we want to keep markets open. We believe it is in our interest. The European Union is by far the biggest exporter in the world, bigger than China, and so it is important to keep markets open, but we believe also our partners have to respect some basic rules. Regarding exchange rates, as you know, the European Union was in the front line during the last G20 to address this issue constructively and cooperatively, because we believe that matter should also be discussed when we address the problems of major imbalances in the world economy.
Thank you very much. Second part of question hour, catch the eye. The topic is Wikileaks, cybersecurity. Colleague Carlos Coelho. 1 minute, please.
Muito obrigado, Sr. Presidente. Sr. Presidente da Comissão, não vou pedir para se debruçar sobre os problemas da diplomacia norte-americana, nem para comentar as virtudes e as fraquezas das redes informáticas, para comentar a liberdade de informação, nem sequer vou pedir-lhe para comentar os vergonhosos apelos à morte de Assange. Venho dizer-lhe que não temos o direito de ignorar as informações que vieram ao público. Pedi aos presidentes das Comissões das Liberdades e dos Direitos Humanos para revisitarmos a investigação que este Parlamento fez em 2007 sobre as atividades da CIA na Europa e a que tive a honra de presidir. Na altura, prestei-lhe homenagem. A Comissão Barroso I colaborou e ajudou com assinalável transparência, bem ao contrário do Conselho, que na relação com este Parlamento omitiu e mentiu. A pergunta que lhe faço é muito simples. Está uma vez mais a Comissão Barroso disposta a colaborar em plena transparência com o Parlamento Europeu? Muito obrigado.
Thank you.
A Comissão Europeia, a que tenho a honra de presidir, colabora sempre com total transparência com o Parlamento Europeu e falo-á sempre no futuro. Não tenho a menor dúvida em relação a isso e agradeço as palavras que quis dirigir em relação à Comissão que eu presido. Eu acho que é importante observarmos em todas as relações entre a Comissão e o Parlamento as mais altas normas e os mais altos princípios de transparência e de leal cooperação institucional.
Thank you very much. Edith Herzog.
Chairman, President, I'd like to ask the same question. Europeans are digital dependent nowadays, and we wish to be digital dependent. But the criteria for that we feel safe and secure in the Internet, I think it's a priority and has to be a priority for the Commission to come up with proposals in safety of 500 million citizens of Europe. What are the plans which can keep the security and the privacy together, that you do not kill one of the other? Thank you.
Thank you.
Some of those matters are at national level of competence. But in what is our competence, we have proposed, in fact, some improvements recently. The legislation for access to documents, we have put forward some proposals with Commissioner Malmström, and they are now being considered by you. And we have been also putting some proposals in terms of cybersecurity, because, as you said rightly, honourable member, we are more and more digital dependent. It is very important that in digital space we have freedom, but freedom, of course, in a responsible manner, protecting also some important rights like the rights to privacy. So data protection is also a question of fundamental rights, and we believe the Commission has put forward sensible proposals that strike the right balance between freedom is non negotiable, at the same time that we use the Internet in a responsible manner.
Thank you. Mr. Graham Watson.
Thank you, President. The President of the Commission has given fulsome answers on WikiLeaks. I wonder if I could ask him about something on which his views have not yet been leaked by Wiki. President, you answered questions on the issuance of Eurobonds to provide current spending for governments. I understand and I share some of the concerns expressed about such a course of action. But do you not recognise the capacity for borrowing which exists as a result of the sound management of the euro? And since Mr Oettinger tells us he needs €1,000 billion over 10 years for energy infrastructure investment, that is about €100 billion a year to help tackle the twin challenge of climate change and energy security. And since that would be extremely ambitious for the European Investment Bank to take on? Would you not bring forward proposals for the issuance of Eurobonds to finance investment in infrastructure rather than to finance current government spending?
Thank you.
Mr Watson, I did not come today here to Wikileaks with you. And in fact, you have already my position on that. In the State of the Union address to you, I mentioned that I will come with proposals for Eurobonds in terms of project Eurobonds, project bonds, precisely for infrastructure, not for Member States to have more debt or not to cover excessive debt, because we have a problem of excessive debt in Europe, but precisely to find some important infrastructure projects, mainly with the support of the European Investment Bank, as you said exactly. This is very much on the agenda, and in our financial perspectives proposal in June we will come with some concrete proposals on that. Let us try to build the necessary consensus, because I think this is one of the ways to address the current problem we have. We have very important constraints in the budget of our Member States. At the same time, we need some financing for some truly European projects.
Thank you. Mr. Sven Giegold. Okay. Mr. Romeva i Rueda.
Señor presidente, a mí lo que me preocupa es el fondo. Tengo la impresión de que estamos matando al mensajero en lugar de ir a la esencia del problema. La gran cuestión que está detrás de Wikileaks es el contenido que están demostrando que es cierto. Durante años usted y otros colegas, como el ministro Moratinos, han negado la mayor, han negado que hubiera una connivencia europea con relación a ciertas prácticas ilegales por parte de los Estados Unidos. Ahora sabemos que esto es cierto, que ha ocurrido, y esperamos todavía una respuesta de parte de muchas cancillerías y particularmente de su parte. Yo creo que es fundamental que usted dé una explicación sobre el contenido. Y después, otra cuestión con relación a la campaña que se está haciendo contra la figura de Julian Assange. El riesgo que en estos momentos esta persona está sufriendo me parece realmente importante que lo tengamos en cuenta. No podemos obviar que él ha hecho algo que era necesario, que era poner sobre la mesa la verdad. Y esto es lo que espero que usted también entienda, y es lo que esperamos todas y todos en este Parlamento que dé en términos de explicaciones, sea aquí o sea en una comisión que deberíamos reactivar para poder saber ciertamente la verdad. Muchas gracias.
Thank you.
Sobre o fundo, todas as notícias vindas a lume referem-se a atividades de Estados-membros, não da Comissão Europeia. Os Estados-membros devem dar todos os esclarecimentos e eu tenho a confiança que o farão, como Estados democráticos que são. E sei que em alguns Estados-membros iniciativas foram tomadas para esclarecer a opinião pública em relação a determinadas operações de que foram acusados. No que diz respeito ao trabalho da Comissão, como há pouco reconheceu o deputado Carlos Coelho, a Comissão fez tudo o que estava ao seu alcance para proporcionar o máximo de informações a este Parlamento e à opinião pública europeia. No que diz respeito ao Sr. Assange, eu não tenho nada a comentar. Há acusações contra ele do foro criminal que foram lançadas por um Estado-membro, que é uma democracia, que é a Suécia. Há neste momento um mandato de captura europeu lançado contra ele que está a ser analisado pelas autoridades judiciárias britânicas. E a Comissão não tem, obviamente, nada a comentar sobre esse aspecto, a não ser uma coisa que é óbvia, que até que seja transitada em julgado uma sentença, presume-se sempre a inocência de qualquer acusado.
Thank you. Mr. Papanikolaou.
Κύριε Πρόεδρε, στο διαδίκτυο αυτή τη στιγμή διεξάγεται ένας πραγματικός πόλεμος. Δημοσιεύματα αναφέρουν ότι εδώ και λίγες μέρες χιλιάδες hackers εξαπολύουν διαδικτυακές επιθέσεις εναντίον των εταιριών που επιχειρούν να κατεβάσουν από το διαδίκτυο τη Wikileaks ή να τη χτυπήσουν οικονομικά και να την αποκόψουν από τις δωρεές. Εταιρείες όπως η Mastercard, η Visa, η PayPal δέχθηκαν ηλεκτρονικές επιθέσεις τύπου DDoS, δηλαδή χιλιάδες υπολογιστές προσπαθούν να συνδεθούν ταυτόχρονα στην ίδια σελίδα, υπερφορτώνοντάς την και θέτοντάς την εκτός λειτουργίας. Αντιλαμβανόμαστε όλοι ότι αυτό δημιουργεί γενικό πρόβλημα στις συναλλαγές των πολιτών. Και το ερώτημα είναι σαφές. Θεωρούμε ότι σε ευρωπαϊκό επίπεδο διαθέτουμε ένα αξιόπιστο δίκτυο ασφαλείας που να προστατεύει αυτές τις διαδικτυακές συναλλαγές των πολιτών σε τέτοιες περιπτώσεις. Σας ευχαριστώ πολύ.
Thank you.
I believe we are not completely prepared for that, and this is the reason why recently the Commission has put forward some proposals for fighting this kind of cyber attacks. It was Commissioner Malmström's initiative, and now those proposals are made to all kinds of cyber attacks. But regarding these cyber attacks that you have mentioned, let me tell you that the United States State Department denies having issued any direct instructions to PayPal, Visa or MasterCard, so I do not have any comment to make on decisions by companies to service or not to service Wikileaks. But the Commission is against any kind of cyber attacks, be them made by one or the other side of that controversy.
Thank you. Madam Ana Gomes.
Sr. Presidente, a publicação de correspondência diplomática americana classificada pela Wikileaks e por respeitados mídia internacionais só é possível porque tem na base colossal falhanço no sistema de segurança americano por excessivo alargamento no circuito de distribuição do Departamento de Estado ao Departamento de Defesa. Que consequências admite o senhor que este falhanço possa ter para o relacionamento transatlântico, designadamente ao nível da partilha de informação nos domínios diplomáticos e da intelligence? E que ações estão a ser retiradas para o reforço da segurança das redes de comunicação inter-europeias, para o funcionamento designadamente do Serviço Europeu de Ação Externa, incluindo a rede Coreu e incluindo a segurança contra ataques cibernéticos?
Thank you.
Em primeiro lugar, nós pensamos que aquilo que se passou nos Estados Unidos pode passar-se praticamente em qualquer sistema de segurança. Nenhum sistema de segurança é completamente imune à possibilidade de uma pessoa a violar a lei. É verdade que no sistema americano, aparentemente, de acordo com as informações chegadas, há centenas de milhares de indivíduos que têm acesso a informação extremamente confidencial. Mas a verdade é que em sistemas que prezam a liberdade, como são também os sistemas europeus, é impossível uma segurança a 100%. É por isso que nós estamos determinados a trabalhar com os nossos parceiros e amigos norte-americanos no sentido de reforçar a segurança, mas sempre no respeito também pelas liberdades fundamentais. E achamos que é importante encontrar, como há bocadinho disse, o bom equilíbrio entre estas duas precauções. É verdade que, nomeadamente por causa das atividades terroristas, é necessário trocar determinadas informações muitíssimo sensíveis, ao mesmo tempo devemos fazê-lo de acordo com as normas da prudência e, em geral, observando o princípio do justo equilíbrio.
Thank you. Madam Sonia Alfano.
Presidente, come dimostrano le dichiarazioni degli esponenti di governi di numerosi Stati, la straordinaria solerzia investigativa utilizzata nei confronti di Assange è palesemente orientata a punire lui e Wikileaks per aver raccontato al mondo alcuni segreti inconfessabili, come la preoccupazione del segretario di Stato americano Clinton, che ha chiesto alle ambasciate americane a Roma e a Mosca notizie circa eventuali investimenti personali di Berlusconi e Putin che possano condizionare le politiche estere o economiche dei rispettivi paesi. Berlusconi viene definito portavoce di Putin in Europa. Risulta evidente che è in atto una punizione e un accanimento senza precedenti nei confronti di un uomo e di un'organizzazione che ha avuto come unica colpa quella di svelare alla popolazione mondiale alcune zone d'ombra scomode per chi governa. Per questo abbiamo il dovere di tutelare la libertà di Wikileaks e garantire un giusto trattamento per Assange, che paghi per le sue colpe se accertate in un giusto processo. Chiedo pertanto alla Commissione la sua posizione sulla vicenda Wikileaks e chiedo inoltre come intende vigilare affinché questa storia non sia strumentale a un giro di vite sulla libertà di informazione e a porre paletti per Internet che si dimostra ancora una volta uno strumento di eccezionale potenza democratica e per questo va tutelato. Grazie.
Thank you.
As I've said earlier, I cannot comment on the specific cases or accusations in criminal terms. Regarding Mr. Assange, there is an accusation being done by the Swedish judiciary system that is now being considered by the British judiciary system. Both Sweden and the United Kingdom are countries that respect the rule of law. We have to let the normal process of law go on. And I cannot comment, and I should not comment precisely because I very much respect the presumption of innocence and the individual rights of everybody. And so I cannot make any comment on that. Regarding the other comments you have made about some things that were in the WikiLeaks, I don't think it is right for me to comment. There are comments attributed to the to the United States diplomats, I mean, that's their responsibility. I cannot comment on them. I have to tell you what is our position. It is not the United States position. Our position, the European position, is clear on the matters that you have asked us, and we do not have to comment now on specific leaks, be it at Wiki or non-Wiki leaks.
Thank you. Mr. Takis Hadjigeorgiou.
Με συγχωρείτε, κύριε Πρόεδρε, εγώ νομίζω ότι εξακολουθούμε να χάνουμε την ουσία, τουλάχιστον νομίζω ότι στις απαντήσεις σας χάνεται η ουσία. Πρώτα απ' όλα μου κάνει τεράστια εντύπωση και θέλω αν δημιουργείτε και σε εσάς η ίδια εντύπωση να μου το πείτε. Αυτή η απίστευτη σιωπή των ευρωπαϊκών οργάνων γύρω από την καταπίεση της ελευθερίας του λόγου. Δυστυχώς και από αυτή την αίθουσα όλοι οι υπερασπιστές της ελευθερίας του λόγου απουσιάζουν. Έχουν εξαφανιστεί. Το ερώτημα μου είναι, βλέπετε μια αξιοποίηση, μια χρησιμοποίηση αυτού του πράγματος για να κατασταλεί η δυνατότητα της μετάδοσης πληροφοριών? Εμείς όλοι που φωνάζουμε για το δικαίωμα στο ίντερνετ των Κινέζων, των Κουβανών και πάρα πολύ σωστά, τώρα που υπάρχει μια καταστολή κυριολεκτικά αυτού του δικαιώματος, τι μπορούμε και τι πρέπει να κάνουμε, τι μπορείτε και πρέπει να κάνετε σαν Κομισιόν? Το ερώτημα δηλαδή είναι συγκεκριμένο. Τι θα κάνετε για να μπορεί ο πολίτης της Ευρώπης να μπει στην ιστοσελίδα του Wikileaks?
Thank you.
First of all, la question de fond, the substantive issue that you have addressed. Freedom of expression in all its forms is not only a fundamental human right, but a cornerstone of our democratic societies. It is not negotiable. At the same time, it is also clear that there is information, be it of a private, commercial or legal nature, which by its very nature is sensitive and cannot be accessible to the wider public. Data protection is also anchored in fundamental rights. All our member states have rules that protect data and some kind of sensitive information for the sake of the public interest. And this is our position in terms of freedom of expression and data protection. Regarding accusations to a specific person, I am not a tribunal. I am not a tribunal, and the Commission is not supposed to make comments on specific accusations against specific individuals, because the Commission is not and does not to be a tribunal and has not presumptions of culpability of a specific individual.
Thank you. Mr. Thune Kellam.
Dziękuję bardzo, prezydencie. President Barroso, the new NATO concept calls for coordinating national cyber defence capabilities to bring all NATO bodies under a centralised cyber protection. How do you see, Mr. President, the European Commission's role in better coordinating our national cyber defences, which are on various levels, and enhancing cooperation with NATO? Will, for example, Ms Ashton take up part of cyber security issues that are covered by the security and defence policies? And do you need more joint EU research to define a comprehensive answer on European level to cyber challenges? Thank you.
This is not mainly a European Commission competence. This is a competence that Ms Ashton has as High Representative. And in fact, she is developing this kind of action with our main partners. And I can tell you that in the last summit with President Obama, we have discussed precisely, we have put on the agenda our cooperation in terms of cyber security. This is an important issue, not only in NATO, but in our bilateral relations with the United States. And we are working on that. We believe there are serious threats in terms of cyber security. Some of our member states, I presume also your country, have been already the object of cyber attacks, and we believe this is an important concern and we have to address it also at European Union level. But this is a matter where the member states have some responsibilities, and the High Representative is developing efforts to have a coherent approach to the problems of cyber security, and I fully support those efforts.
Thank you very much. Mr. Derek Vaughan.
Thank you,
Mr. President, I think there has been a lot of publicity on this particular issue all over Europe, and I think one of the things which concerns people is what this is going to mean for the future of cybersecurity right across the EU. I do not believe that many people are too concerned about the individual involved here. What they are concerned about is how this is going to play out across Europe. And I just think that it is important that the EU has a policy on this. And I would urge the Commission to involve as many partners in these discussions, not only at Member States level, but also at other levels of government right across the EU. So, for example, cyber security is an important position for regional and local government as well.
Thank you.
I fully agree with the concern that you have expressed, and this is exactly the line we are developing. Not so long time ago, the European Union witnessed cyber attacks against public and private organisations in Estonia and in Lithuania in 2007 and 2008 respectively. Thousands of cyber attacks are committed daily against European Union institutions and other public authorities. The Commission recently responded to this alarming situation by proposing on 30 September a proposal for a directive on attacks against information systems, repealing the relevant framework decision from 2005. The overall goal of the directive is to combat large scale attacks originating from and or targeting the European Union. So we are indeed very attentive to this concern, and we believe that that directive is a good one. The proposal penalises the use of tools such as botnets for committing the offences and introduces a higher level of sanctions for committing the offences. It introduces an obligation for Member States to respond to an urgent request from both the public and the private sector via the 24/7 network of contact points within 8 hours from receiving the request, and introduces a monitoring obligation for Member States to facilitate the collection and provision of data about cyber attacks, including the number of prosecutions and criminal reports.
Thank you very much. Mr. Borghezio.
Grazie Presidente, le risposte sulla situazione, sul problema Assange e sulla sua situazione di carcerato per idee di libertà ricordano quelle di Ponzio Pilato. 3 punti. Esiste un fumus persecutionis perché le accuse sono molto deboli. Gli Stati Uniti fanno pressione su un paese europeo per l'estradizione e non hanno ancora messo a fuoco quali sarebbero i presupposti giuridici per questa richiesta. Vengono chiusi i conti bancari dalle banche, in Europa un cittadino si trova costretto, i suoi sostenitori, a non poter ricevere eventuali sostegni finanziari. Per di più l'opinione pubblica europea, lo dicono tutte le statistiche, è a favore di questi principi di libertà, vuole la libertà su Internet, è a favore della libertà, nonostante i dubbi, i problemi che sono nati da questa iniziativa, che io non condivido totalmente, ma vogliamo sapere dal Presidente Barroso quali sono i limiti e qual è il fondamento vero, effettivo della difesa dei diritti umani, dei diritti di libertà e di espressione. Siamo di fronte a una Guantanamo virtuale? Siamo di fronte al pericolo di una censura orwelliana totalitaria su Internet. Questo è il pericolo e queste sono le risposte che bisogna dare. Bisogna andare anche a controllare le condizioni di carcerazione, perché neanche i mafiosi in Italia vengono tenuti in totale isolamento.
I can give to the distinguished member of parliament some information of the legal aspects of this case, of course without prejudging the position, because I think, as I am not a tribunal, I cannot have a decision on that. But first of all, Mr Assange was taken into custody by the British authorities on the basis of a European arrest warrant. The Swedish prosecutor issued a so-called advertisement notice regarding Mr Assange in the Swedish system, the Schengen system and via Interpol. And that was the basis on which the European arrest warrant was issued. Now, according to the framework decision on the European arrest warrant, Article 28, a person who has been surrendered pursuant to a European arrest warrant shall not be extradited to a third state without the consent of the competent authority of the member state which surrendered the person. End of quote. This means that since Mr Assange was taken into custody in the UK, the British authority competent to decide whether or not to surrender him to Sweden would also have to give its prior consent to extradite him to a third state. This is the best clarification I can give to the distinguished member of parliament on the legal aspects.
Thank
but of
you.
course I cannot have any kind of presumption about the culpability or not of the individual in question.
Thank you very much, Madam Sarah Ludford.
President Barroso, you have made various statements, including this afternoon, about how the EU and its member states respect fundamental rights and the rule of law. But the inquiry on extraordinary rendition, of which Mr Coelho was the chair and I was the vice chair, reported prima facie evidence that around a dozen EU and other European countries had colluded in war on terror abuses such as disappearance and torture. And frankly, I am afraid you gave a rather waffly answer to Mr Coelho. We believe that the Commission and the Council had not respected Article 6 of the Treaty, and we urged them to ascertain the truth about what had happened and to take action, if appropriate, under Article 7, which means sanctions for human rights abuses. Frankly, there has been no result. This leaves the EU open to the charge of hypocrisy. What will you do now to get full political and legal accountability for European collusion in human rights abuses under the name of the so-called war on terror?
Thank you very much.
First of all, the European Commission has respected always the fundamental rights, and I absolutely reject any kind of criticism that the European Commission has been involved in any kind of covering any kind of violation of fundamental rights. This is not true. The European Commission has a complete clean record on that matter, and we are ready to work with the European Parliament in full transparency on all those matters. Now, there are some matters that are the responsibility of our member states, and they have to do their duties. The European Commission cannot replace the member states. We have a treaty, we have responsibility, we have duties, we have rights. And I want to tell that the Commission has given all the cooperation requested to this Parliament and, by the way, in full transparency on the matters that you have just mentioned.
Thank you. Mr. Franz Obermeier.
Danke, Herr Präsident. Die Internetplattform Wikileaks publiziert, vereinfacht gesagt, geheime Informationen, und das ist naturgemäß immer sehr unangenehm für die Beteiligten. Und festzustellen ist natürlich auch, dass bisher kein rechtsstaatliches Verfahren gegen Wikileaks stattgefunden hat. In der Zwischenzeit tobt ein regelrechter Cyberkrieg. Einerseits Wikileaks-Server werden angegriffen, andererseits wieder Befürworter von Wikileaks bombardieren Webserver von Visa, von Mastercard, dass diese zusammenbrechen. Nun meine Frage, Herr Präsident. Wird die Kommission gegen solche Stellvertreterkriege vorgehen? Sie haben bereits die Aktivitäten der Frau Kommissarin Malmström erwähnt. Gibt es da bereits ein Zeitraster? Gibt es bereits Vorstellungen? Und plant die Kommission, da möchte ich bitte eine klare Antwort und nicht Ausreden in Details und Gerichtshofbegründungen, plant die Kommission konkret gegen Wikileaks vorzugehen, um sich wieder einmal als Erfüllungsgehilfe der USA bei dem sensiblen Thema des Datentransfers aufzutreten und zu verhalten?
First of all, we are not planning any kind of action against WikiLeaks. Secondly, regarding the directives we have put forward, they are now for discussion also by the European Parliament. We have put proposals on the table to reinforce cyber security. Some of the issues that you want me to be very detailed on, I think it is better to give you a briefing at tech expert level. I am sorry I cannot go not in 1 minute to give you concrete answers, but my services are fully available to you if you wish to give you all the details about the way we see this important issue. But this is basically not a Commission issue. This is something that happened in the United States with impact, of course, in the global community that uses the Internet, and it is a very serious and important issue, of course. I am not underestimating the importance of it, but we have to be clear about what are our competences. But once again, I am offering you, if you wish, for any members of the European Parliament, in an organised manner, a complete briefing of the technical measures that we can take at European level.
Thank you very much. Last question, Mr. Petru Luhan.
Domnule președinte Barroso, aș vrea să vă adresez o întrebare tot referitoare la ceea ce s-a întâmplat de curând, atacurile la Visa, Mastercard și PayPal de către hackeri în ideea de a sabota activitățile economice ale acestora și a cauza pierderi financiare. Cu ocazia acestor atacuri informatice care au creat probleme tehnice mai mult sau mai puțin severe, datele confidențiale ale clienților au fost în siguranță sau au fost vulnerabile? Este prima întrebare. Deoarece există posibilitatea ca în paralel cu aceste atacurile informatice, ideologice sau hackiste să se infiltreze și hackerii care urmăresc doar un profit financiar. Aș dori să știu dacă aceste informații financiare și personale au fost afectate și care sunt modalitățile și actorii implicați în acest context, dacă dumneavoastră aveți în momentul de față situația sub control. Și aș vrea să știu dacă această problematică este și pe masa autorităților americane și celor internaționale. Vă mulțumesc.
No direct information on the leaks and how far was the information or confidential information or data, private data was leaked. I'm sorry, I don't have that information myself. I have nothing to do with that case. Now, of course this issue, this case has raised very important issues in terms of security. It's true. Some of those problems we have been already working with them before this WikiLeaks case, and I've told you about some initiatives of the Commission, and I'm sure that on the other side of the Atlantic they are concerned as well. So that is why I think that we should work together for increasing the cyber security, always respecting the fundamental freedoms, because freedom of expression is of course a sacred right for us in the European Union, at the same time being clear that data protection and privacy is also a fundamental right. So we have to find the right balance, and that is why we have in all our initiatives to take on board those two, sometimes difficult to harmonise, but nevertheless very important principles.
Thank you very much. We had 21 colleagues on the list, but only 14 of you could take a floor. I am very sorry. It was in order which is on the list, precisely. And it is the end of our question hour. Thank you, Mr. President Barroso, all of you colleagues, for a very hot discussion and very interesting. Okay.